Hello, my thing is freaking out, but we'll figure it out. So, hi, Brother Crawford. This is Garrett Jones, and this is what I want to do for my final. So instead of going through a bunch of slides, I want to do a Google Hangout with you. I felt as though that would be the best way for me to convey my thoughts and feelings about how this company is done and some of the analysis that I've done as I've looked at it. Also providing you the best chance to look at it and to be able to follow on with what I'm saying. So as I was able to look through our financial statements for this entire semester, in particular, I'm going to focus on our first 6 weeks of operation because I believe that's where we struggled most. In this last 3 weeks, obviously, we've done a lot of things to improve and to fix that. So I wanted to go back and kind of show you those first 6 weeks and things that I noticed that obviously we needed to do better on. And as I go back and do analysis of things that we could fix. So I've highlighted in red some of the things that I believe have been some of our biggest killers. And I'm going to kind of go sporadically here. So I'm going to try to move slowly so I don't give you a headache when you're looking at this video. So the first thing I kind of wanted to look at was our labor expense. So if you look at labor expense over the span of the first 6 weeks, we go from 412, we drop for the next 2 weeks, and then we jumped to 337, and then we were over 500. And obviously, we just not only did we not improve that, we just got even worse. And so as we look at that, that's obviously one of the things that's killing us most. If you look at all the rest of the other expenses, marketing expenses, that's pretty normal. Supplies expenses decreasing as the weeks go on. Rent expense increases slightly due to the to-go booths that we did, but it's not a huge thing. And so if you look at everything else, everything is pretty moderate, and things don't tend to change that much. It's just that labor expense that makes up the bulk of all of our operating expenses. And if we're looking at the bottom, we're looking at, for example, week 6, we have $912 of total operating expenses, and 505 of that are labor expense. So more than half of our operating expenses are coming purely from labor, from the booth, from setup and takedown to making the cookie dough in the mornings. So obviously the first thing that we need to do as a company is how can we, as the board told us, how can we trim fat there? How can we operate with less people? How can we make our systems and our processes better so that we don't have to spend 2 hours in the kitchen in the morning? How can we do it so we can only spend half an hour or 45 minutes? So that's the first thing that needs to be changed, that we have hopefully been changing these last 3 weeks. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about was up here with the 1 scoop and 2 scoop, just looking at our revenues for those weeks and how much we're actually making. If we go back to our original forecast, let's see if I can get this to work here. So for week 1 and week 2 in our original forecast, we have nearly $1,000 of total revenue with the 1 scoop and about $639 for the 2 scoop, resulting in a grand total of about $1,631. So now if we go to our actuals, we're about 700 short, and you'll notice that's a pattern throughout the entire first 6 weeks. And not only are we not hitting that number, but every single week. So from week 1 to week 2, we increased by about $200. Roughly around there, and which is not where we want it to be, but it's at least an increase. But if we look over weeks 3 through 6, we're decreasing every single week. We have a dollar increase from week 3 to week 4, but then we keep going down. And so I'm sitting here looking at this as going, obviously, like you've talked to us numerous times, we're not being good enough salesmen. We're not doing enough at the booth to get people to come to the booth. With our marketing somehow is not correlating between what we do in our marketing and how people are getting that. There's a disconnect. And so I think a big part of that kind of brings us up here to the top is with our dollars collected per unit. So for our 1 scoops, we're doing $3, and our 2 scoops are $4.50. Just look at right here. So I think, obviously, even at any price, I believe if we were to increase our sales, how we are as salesmen and saleswomen, we would be able to sell that at pretty much any price we needed to a certain extent. But from the beginning, I have always saw price as something that we could have lowered. And if I was to be a consultant for this company, if I was their CFO and it came down to my decision of what's one thing that we can do as a company to improve, my first thing that I would pull the trigger on is we drop the prices significantly. If you look down here at our gross margin percentage, it is dirt cheap to make this cookie dough. between the cups, the spoons, the raw ingredients, everything, we have about an 89% to 80. So 89% profit margin for the 1 scoop and an 88 for the 2 scoop. So when you look at that, there's a lot of playing room that we have there. And in these last 3 weeks, as we've gone to 99-cent days and selling it for $1.49 instead of $3, so cutting the price literally in half, I personally, when I work at the booth and just looking at our financials, is that I've seen a huge influx of people. Even though $1 may not seem like a lot to some people, or $1.50, well, to me that doesn't seem like a huge decrease. To the eyes of the consumer, the random student, of the average student here on campus, that's huge. And I've had a lot of people talk about, well, if it was lower, I'd come. And while we were kind of stubborn with this price point of $3 and $4.50 in the beginning, and I felt guilty to this as well. While I wanted to start off with an initially small, a smaller price, excuse me, I sat there and go, well, unless we charge high enough, we're not going to hit our revenue goals. There's just like the quantity of sales that we would need is just insurmountable. And while that there's a case that can be made to that to an extent, it doesn't matter if you're selling it high if no one's coming. And for something like cookie dough, which is not a need, it is a luxury thing. It's a nice, and that's the culture that we've built, is having it be a nice dessert, sweet tooth thing. People aren't going to spend top dollar for it. But if we offer it a low enough price, we can get people that can come every day or every other day. And a big part of retail in general is just how can we get the return customer. So that is something that, as I look at this and just going, we should have dropped the price sooner and we should have kept it lower. And I think obviously we go from selling 223 single scoops a week to 500 or 600, while our cost of goods obviously goes up because we're spending so much more on materials. I think our bottom line is a lot better off because we have so many more people coming to the booth and eating it and reaching out to their friends and bringing them and creating a culture of this is delicious and it is cheap. And that's how we can get more people there. So those, as I look at the rest of our income statement and balance sheet, there aren't too many things that stand out to me just going, wow, those are really big gaping holes. But the ones that I've talked to you about is labor expense and just our salesmanship and overall price. I believe those were some of our biggest killers. And if we were to fix those things from the start of week 1, I think our financials and our success over the course of the semester, it becomes a much different story. Obviously, we can't go back and fix that. But it's nice for me knowing as I go off into my career in the future is how can I approach whatever I do in the future differently financially so I don't run into this problem again. Obviously, I train my people on how to sell better, how to sell better, how to sell up the customer, all these different things. Obviously, those are things we work on, but at the same time is how can we fix our price point initially, and how can we make our processes better so that we're not hemorrhaging money on labor expense, and that we're offering it at a low enough price to where we still are making a decent a gross margin, and people are coming to the booth. So that is my analysis of our financials over this entire semester, especially for this first 6 weeks compared to our forecast. It's been a wonderful learning experience, and I very much enjoyed it. Obviously, there's a lot of things that I learned about myself, both as a finance guy, as a marketing person. There's a lot of things that I thought I was good at that I'm really not that great at. And there's a lot of things that I thought I was awful at that I'm not too bad. And this entire process, especially looking through these financials, have proved to me that I have plenty to work on. And not only that I have things to work on, but I need to be brave enough and smart enough to be able to make those changes and speak up sooner. So instead of watching this company struggle over the last few months, but maybe struggle for a week and go, changes need to happen, and working hard to show financial analysis and change so that people can get on board with that idea. So that is my analysis, and I hope you enjoyed. I'm looking for this to shut it down because I don't know where I'm at, but I really appreciate your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks.